useless.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Box, the exciting show where we open a box and decide if the box rocks or if it's a box full of rocks.
I don't know if this is going to be a good episode.
This pillow is fucking useless shirt.
Yeah.
Sometimes in life you have to make a choice. Sometimes in life you have to find your voice. Sometimes in life you need your time to give your ears a cleanse. We ramble on about movies, ramble on about movies, with clever, arrogant, handsome Dave, ramble on because the way.
Ahoy! Welcome back to a brand new edition of the Ramble On About Movies podcast. Happy 4th of July. Remember, we will not go quietly into the night. We will not vanish without a fight. We will live on. We are going to survive because today we celebrate our Independence Day. Yeah, baby, we are back.
Clever Eric Muller over there. Had an introduction as always.
It's a day and all the way on the side of this great nation and of this great internet.
The great nation and the internet. We're doing a service. We're working today, so you don't have to.
That's right. And for all those who are working, we're happy to give you a hour and a half break.
A little reprieve. I do like how no matter what you're talking about or what you wind up quoting, it inevitably will devolve into Macho Man Randy Savage. Like,
hey, I know what happened. I know what the people are here for.
You are correct, Ferris. Thanks for hanging out. Very headbanging music. Mike, thanks for joining us. Happy 4th to everybody. Yeah, it's now I can't go further without.
And to answer Reese's question, it's brats today.
Ooh, brats, which is ironic because not really American.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, no one is truly American.
We don't. We need.
We are all immigrants.
If we have more indigenous Americans, then we could talk about. Hey,
that's right.
Todd, how you doing, buddy? So we got family in the chat now too. Very appropriate. Did you see Fast 9 yet?
Me? I still haven't seen the other F8s.
Do you really think it matters? There's my question to you.
Touche.
Like I went and saw it. Me and Chris, other founder of the channel or of our show. We actually went and saw Fast 9. And also, Ferris, great point. The most American thing is to pick something not American to celebrate. So, like, you have pizza, you're going to have spaghetti, like tacos, whatever you want, which is all cultural appropriation all over the place.
Right.
Like,
we'll take it.
But yeah, my first experience back in the theaters in 15 months, last movie I saw was The Gentleman. And then it was F9. So it was a perfect go in, shut your brain off movie about family, explosions, cars, all of the above. I mean, it was exactly what I expected. Like I could give you a Mad Libs right now, Eric, and you could tell me the plot of the movie, which would be a lot of fun and pretty much exactly what you're expecting.
I mean, that's how they're going to write the F10 part 1 and part 2. They're just going to have Vin Diesel call to people and AMC goes, hey, let's talk about the movies. And give me a plural noun.
It's fam, or like they literally go and they have all those Mad Libs, but it's like I'm looking at my computer keyboard right now and I'm like, at what point do we get that like the slow pan over the keyboard where you go over all the F keys and then it just zooms into F10 or F11 and like that's how the movie starts, where it's like that sexy hacking scene, you know what I mean? That like turn of the century, late 90s, mid early 2000s, where it's like Swordfish. Yeah, like that totally is going to be happening in one of these movies.
Some guy who looks like me eating his Pringles going, oh!
They get Charlie Coons from Community. Although if it was directed by the Russos, that would probably be much more likely.
But yeah, no, I go to the theaters for the first time since everything on Thursday, seeing Black Widow.
You've seen Black Widow. Nice.
Dolby Theater.
That was it. Like when I was talking with Chris, that was my insistence. I'm like, if we're seeing this, I want to see it right. So we went to a Dolby for F9 and it was exactly like that's the kind of experience I wanted for my first time back. Like there are a couple other ones, like another one that's coming out in a couple of weeks. I don't know if I'll make it as a priority. Like I'm sure Space Jam would be fun to see in theaters, but it's also like
it's
I turn
on
around.
HBO Max.
I might watch it that Friday before I go into work. Like it's kind of hard.
Yeah,
to deny that. Like,
and also it's gonna be weird because the last movie I saw in the theater was Invisible Man. So I'm going from the the Blumhouse mystery thriller.
Thanks, buddy.
To Marvel. Let's just shoot all the things.
I'm sure this would be a good one too. Quiet Place 2, that would be a lot of fun to see.
I was really debating that, but since I recently signed up for Paramount Plus, I'm going to be getting that in like I think 20 something days, since because it's 45 days after the first release they're going to have it.
It was one of those things where it was like I wasn't making it a priority to see Quiet Place 2 because I'm slacking and I still haven't seen the first one. Granted, I'm sure I could have a relatively good experience with it if I if I hooked up, like I have some good noise canceling headphones, like put those on, go watch it on the TV in the living room. Like that could be good, but it's also like Quiet Place 2 is like one of those, it's like we talk about here where it's one of those experience films where it's like if you don't see it in a theater with an audience, it's kind of like I'm sure it's good, but that would be an
right. No,
like,
it's one of those things. There's been a lot of those movies. It's we've been locked down and quarantined, doing what's best for your fellow Americans.
Yes, very much so. This is another good point. Like there's all of the they're all coming out, and that's actually there's a story that we'll talk about a little bit later.
Literally, Hollywood's been practicing the same sex that Sting does, and they're about ready just to
tantric
right.
sex.
Tantric. They're just against the wall.
I mean, we can. It's one of those things that like they're so interesting, and we might as well. We haven't I didn't make a news story. We didn't do research for it, but the Space Jam 2 clips they're so interesting, and like it's one of those things. I kind of trust the creative team about this just because of who all is involved, and like I think they're banking on a fair amount of nostalgia to put butts in seats, but also the fact that it's a family friendly movie, and you have LeBron James, literally one of the biggest athletes on the planet, carrying this thing, and another thing they've been kind of sitting and crafting for a while. So and like you can say, Mike, what you're thinking about coming up in the comments as well, but like what are you giggling at over there?
Anton's comment.
Oh, the backlog. Yeah. Oh, no, wait, it's for release.
But to go on what Mike said with those clips, like the Notorious P.I.G., again, I am now a 38-year-old man. Yes, that does not excite me to go see that movie. But 10-year-olds, 8-year-olds, that they're probably going to enjoy it more than I will, and that's fine.
Yeah, and I'm sure.
But I also understand, them parroting the Matrix, little weird, but it just goes into my whole theory that Space Jam 2 is going to be the Warner Brothers Kingdom Hearts live action movie.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts or Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Or it seems like there's going to be a lot of IP flying around in this movie, so to speak. Although I also would be surprised. I don't know if there's a runtime yet, because the first one was not even $1.30.
Yeah, it was literally less. It was close to 90 minutes. And it was a tight 90.
It was tight implies that there's no fat on that movie, and I think that particular movie is not so much that you can cut it, but more that that movie got stretched to make its runtime. You know what
It
I
was-
mean?
Yeah, it was 88 minutes total.
Yeah. 88 minutes. That's, real quick. Are you pontificating, Drew, that the new one's going to be 90? I think the new one, this is my hunch. And yes, that's true as well. Space Jam will be worth it for the LeBron James reaction gifts alone. I think the new one, my prediction is let me see if it's out before.
They've already had the runtime out. I just
they
Googled
do?
it. Yeah,
What is it?
2 hours.
I was literally going to say an hour 50. That was going to be my guess because
No, again, that's including credits and all that fun stuff.
Yep, and exactly. Me and Mike are pretty much in the same boat here. So, yeah, so 2 hours, so probably about an hour 50 of actual movies. I'm looking forward to it. Like you got the nostalgia bank. I do think LeBron could. I don't know if he'll ever do like acting roles, but I think honestly he's superior to Michael Jordan, and he has already been proven. Like you remember.
See, now that you said that, Michael Jordan's going to take this personally. He's going to bankroll his own production of Hamlet just to prove you wrong, Dan.
He's gonna get Kenneth Branagh to direct him. It would be the worst movie I would ever watch more than 10 times. Like I think I would maybe a long-term goal to see Michael Jordan play Hamlet. I don't
On Broadway.
No, I want to see like the full-fledged production, like basically remove Mel Gibson, put in Michael Jordan. Like
Yes.
that's what I want to see. But I do honestly think LeBron, like remember before he ever did any movies, like those Nike ads, they were only like 30 seconds long, but he's playing like everyone sitting around a dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's even like charming and has a lot of screen presence in that. So you go from there, you go into Trainwreck, and it's like, especially him like producing this and having a big hand in it creatively.
Everyone was discussing like, okay, if there's ever going to be a Space Jam 2, because remember back when everyone thought it was a hypothetical.
Yeah,
everyone's like, you got to get LeBron to do it because he has that.
Yeah.
He just has that natural charisma.
Yes, it will be. Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. I don't know how many times I'll watch it because that first one was very much hit you at the right time for us in our younger years and developmental ages.
7th grade when that thing came out.
I remember I listened to the soundtrack probably more than I watched the movie.
The soundtrack is tight. A little problematic nowadays, but definitely a tight sound.
Yeah, for one or two songs or just one? Just one?
One.
Maybe two. Yeah. No, but that's honestly, that was probably the worst song on the album. Like you keep
yeah, the Monster Sue song.
Oh my god, so good. So good. Or Chris Rock and Barry White. So great.
Basketball Jones.
Yeah. I don't know why this was a good idea when I was younger, but like when I was doing soccer 2 days, I would run with that on a Walkman. I don't know why that album was a good running album, but when I was younger, I thought it was.
Well, because you gotta get to the slam.
Yeah,
to the jam.
I did. Yeah, I did think that first track. I did. Have you noticed that they've started to like low key throw that into the trailers where it's like a remix?
Threw that in the first one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's a smart move. But yeah, that was recent release in Space Jam talk. The crew unveiled their new stadium. I'm really happy about that. I'm sure you saw all
and
that
they
stuff on
didn't
your timeline
lose.
too. They didn't. They could have lost. It was touch and go there for a minute, and it was a very emotional day yesterday for me. Not wanting to be there or wanting to be there, but not being able to be there. And then just seeing everyone, all my friends, like, oh, it's so great, and they were like, it's so loud, and I'm like, oh, like I'm just very happy for the future. And I think they're the best team in the league right now that we played yesterday. New England is. So it was bittersweet. I'm happy we got a point. And there's a lot more for our team going forward. So little bit of crew update. I mean, I would have worn crew stuff, but I felt like Space Jam was more appropriate, especially since I don't know if we'll do another show before the movie comes out, because I think it comes out in 2 weeks or right around 2 weeks.
Next Friday.
Yeah, because you got Black Widow and then Space Jam. Like Anton was saying, they're just going to be rapid fire coming out of the gate. But let's go. So many blockbusters.
I know. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna have to do my July 5. We're gonna have to watch 5 movies tomorrow.
Wow. Hold on. I can get one of them. You're gonna watch The Tomorrow War.
Yes.
I don't know what else you would be watching. Are they all new?
Yep.
Luca.
No, I already watched that one.
Oh, you already watched Luca. Okay.
Recommend
I liked
that.
Luca. I liked
I
Luca a
liked it
lot.
too.
I think it was good.
With
I
the
think-
haters.
I don't know why you would hate that movie. It's like not every Pixar
Because
movie
it's
has to be existential.
Right, exactly. It's pretentious people going, well, it's no Wall-E, it's no Toy Story 3. So what? It's just kids having fun.
It's a little story. It's a great little coming of age story. You know what I mean?
I do. So yeah, it's the Tomorrow War.
Okay.
The new documentary on Hulu about the Summer of Love.
Okay.
It's about the soul concert they had in Brooklyn, produced by Questlove.
Okay. Fear Street?
No, America, the movie.
Oh, okay.
By Archer, Lord Miller, Channing
Oh,
Tatum.
wow. Okay, now I might have to bump that up to my. I was going to say Reese said he liked Fear Street, so.
Okay, now I forget the other two. No, I forget the other one, but the other one is definitely Boss Baby 2.
Mike says Summer of Soul. Oh,
Summer of Soul.
Is that because it's on Paramount Plus?
Boss Baby 2. No, that's on Peacock.
Oh, that's right. They did a day and date on there. I cramming all my show notes. Like I did read that, but it was.
Oh, and then I want to watch that one that's on HBO Max.
LFG?
No,
I would.
It's the new one by Steven Spielberg.
No Sudden Move.
No Sudden Move. That's it.
So I want to. Out of those ones, I want to watch No Sudden Move, and I also want to watch The Tomorrow War. I was actually very lukewarm about The Tomorrow War, and then literally everything I've seen has been very positive, and I'm like, oh, okay. But I would also recommend the wife and I sat down and watched LFG, which stands short for Let's Fucking Go.
Well,
and
yeah,
it's documented
the U.S. women's soccer team because they were awesome and you deserve all the love.
More specifically, this is about them suing the governing body of the U.S. Soccer Federation.
Nice.
For basically, for equal pay. So I'm very much into that. It was very well done. Really liked it. So I'd highly recommend it. It was a solid watch.
Oh yeah, that's my tomorrow. So pay attention to Twitter.
Yeah, for all the live tweets for Eric watching these movies. We do have news stories we can cover before we get into 4th of July stuff.
Yeah, man, I guess.
I mean, that's kind of what we talk about here.
I suppose.
The oldest one, I'm trying to think of when this actually came out and there's a certain amount of news outlets and whatnot that will typically cover stories. And this one, I didn't find on one of those. It was on NBC News, which I thought was interesting, but it was, and I'm sure it was everywhere else. And it says directly Steven Spielberg signs deal with Netflix for latest sign of evolving Hollywood. Like that's the headline, which is interesting because we talked about this a couple of years ago when Spielberg was I want to say it was late 2019. I might be able to find it yeah, he told the Times in 2019 where he was supposedly very anti-streaming, like streaming movies being eligible for awards and whatnot. And we had a big long conversation about that. But so essentially it was in a clear, like quoting in the article, in a clear sign of the times, Spielberg's company, Amblin Partners, announced it has signed a multi-year deal to make feature films annually for the streaming powerhouse Netflix. So what this means is not so much that Spielberg is walking back his comments, because apparently he already clarified them in a different email later on, because it was also the same year and then in this article, they go on to say Spielberg also he said this, and then but Netflix releases movies. They release movies in theaters for 1 week, and then they talked about The Irishman and Marriage Story, which I thought was really curious because you pick those two movies, which are, in my opinion, not you neither one of those movies is like a movie theater experience. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no.
You could argue Scorsese, but still, it's I feel like there's not. And you can argue this for any movie, but especially Marriage Story. Marriage Story is such a small personal story that it's really impactful. Granted, I saw it at home and it still impacted me just as much. Fantastic storytelling. And you can go back to previous episodes and hear our thoughts on The Irishman. But those aren't Spielberg blockbuster movies. So, and it's what this article goes on to say is basically that there is a potential for Spielberg to direct a direct to Netflix movie, but it's mostly focused on his company. So Amblin has had a hand in so many, the Amblin name, you pretty much can get a vibe of what they're going for. That was the long and the short of it. What are your thoughts about this just in general?
I mean, personally, maybe this is just a chance for Spielberg's production company to do more creative things that they can't get pushed out through a regular movie studio, partnering with a regular movie studio. Because, it's Netflix. Their policy is, here's money, go, make.
Yeah, which is interesting because how I don't understand how that's sustainable. Like, it's a good idea. Like,
well, it's like, for example, how many people do you know who actually pay for Netflix versus borrowing somebody's? I know we both pay, but let me tell you, as long as Netflix isn't listening to this right now, I'm the only one in my family who does, because everyone else uses my subscription. I'm a good brother/son.
I was late to that sharing this. There's only one streaming service that I have that I don't pay for. And that's one of them that I swap with my sister. But so yeah, I'm paying for everything. And then Mike says Amblin has already been collaborating with Netflix on the TV side of things, at least as far back as The Haunting of Hill House. Correct, which is, if in my opinion, one of the best produced series, like Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor. And that is some fantastic storytelling in a few episodes. So yeah, great stuff there. And Jesse, you probably took an Amblin to fall asleep on a plane once. That's true. Yeah, we'll allow bad jokes. We make them. We have to acknowledge them. So I mean, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see. I hope we get those like mid-budget movies coming back, and we've been kind of talking about this for a while. Like, they're probably going to go direct to streaming, but they'll get a little bit of push. I think the Tomorrow War is a good example of that, although that might have had a bigger budget and then got sold during the pandemic. So it'll be interesting to see like where these stories go and what type of movies we get pushed from Amblin to Netflix and then directly to us. And then, because it'll be curious too, like we're saying, like, are they going to go for some more awards consideration? Or are we going to see these being released later in the year? Or are we going to see them put out like now, like middle of the summer, July 4th, like here's some spectacle? So
come on, what do you got for us, Spielberg? What's up that old sleeve? Just let us know.
Let us know. In a little quickie bit of news, I thought this was fun. The headline was saying Television Academy opens door for Performer Emmy. There was a little more to the story about like documentary and like splitting hairs there, but it was interesting where a non-binary actor was being submitted for. They could choose, basically the studio would choose and the performer would choose what category they want to be submitted for. Eventually they were submitted in the actor category. However, had they won, I'm trying to think if they actually won. I don't think they did.
I don't think they did.
I don't think they won. But essentially what they were saying was, had this non-binary actor won, they could have changed the actual trophy from saying actor or actress to performer, which is just a nice little bit of inclusion. I bet you will get that in the Oscars within the next 5 years. This is for the Emmys, so this is the biggest thing for TV. So it was a really like great little story as far as representation goes.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I think it's a good step forward.
Yeah. That was, like I said, a little quickie thing. Like, happy to see it. Like, good on you, Emmys. Bravo.
You go, Emmys.
You go, Emmys. I'll throw together. How do I want to hop around here? Since we're talking about, because those are casting and then we hop around. We're all over the place. I don't know what I'm doing. Well, I kind of know what I'm doing.
It's not like we agreed to do this show last night, right?
We agreed to do a show last night. Let's do it on the 4th. We'll see what everyone's doing. I do just love there's not much to the story outside of the headline, but it says Jerry Seinfeld to direct, produce, and star in Pop-Tart origin story called Unfrosted for Netflix. Speaking of Netflix. So apparently, like, Jerry Seinfeld has had a very tight relationship with Netflix since Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, and then he's done 2 specials for him, and then Netflix actually has the exclusive rights to Seinfeld for the next 5 years, and I'm sure they paid an arm and a leg for those.
Oh, I'm sure.
But this is a pretty quick paragraph where it says the movie, which Seinfeld has co-written with Spike Burstein and Barry Marder, was inspired by a popular joke of Seinfeld's about when he first discovered Pop-Tarts as a kid. And he was like, when I was a kid, they invented the Pop-Tart. That back of my head blew off. Sets the story in motion. So that's how it starts. It's just like, yeah, I agree with you, Mike. Whether or not this movie actually happens, I just love it as a headline. I 100%.
Oh, it's going to happen because again, it's Netflix. They will make anything.
I mean, yeah, we all love Pop-Tarts. It's just one of those things where it's like we also have some of the there's
Quick,
like
everyone drop your favorite Pop-Tart into the chat.
yeah, right. Tell us what your favorite Pop-Tarts are. I was a big chocolate fudge guy growing up. I didn't.
I'm a fan of the traditional frosted strawberry.
Yeah, I never really got into like the fruit flavors for the strawberry or the blueberry or any of those stuff. I always like the fudge. I occasionally would dabble with the s'mores, but I had to be in the right mood.
S'mores, good. Cookies and cream. That's a great one. It's a newer one.
Newer one, sure. It's so, yeah. And the title is Unfrosted. My case says strawberry, easy response, but also cookies and cream. So maybe I slept on the cookies and cream.
You did.
Just unfrosted. Like, well, what are
again? It's just Jerry just walked in. So let's do a movie about Pop-Tarts. I mean, they're not pop, they're not tarty. What's the deal with that?
This was really just an effort to get me to have you do a Seinfeld impression. That was all me bringing this story up was. Reese says chocolate fudge and unfrosted strawberry. I feel like that might be a hot take. The unfrosted strawberry.
Maybe that's why Seinfeld's right made in this movie. He's like, no, people need to know the true story about unfrosted strawberry Pop-Tarts.
It's a story that needs to be told. Needs.
Hey, he told us, he made us B movies. So I mean, it's Seinfeld. What do you?
I mean, he's doing whatever he wants now. Good for him. Yeah, it was what was the other really like clearly we got the Emoji Movie to very mixed reviews. I actually saw that in theaters. But like wasn't there another one where it was like another crazy origin story where it was like not the Rubik's Cube, but something like just as mundane and asinine or like a board game where we were getting an origin story on, I can't remember what it was top of my head, but I know we've talked about it where they announced this and we were like, who is asking for this movie?
Wasn't it?
Doesn't that sound funny? No, it wasn't Monopoly. It was something that even had like even more like there should not be an origin story. I can't remember what it was. This is that's a very hard nail to hit on the head from what we're talking about because we've definitely talked about it on the show before because it was like that ludicrous sounding. I remember. No, it wasn't Candyland. It wasn't Battleship because there's been a Battleship movie, but I remember what this was because they announced multiple movies. It was Tetris.
Oh, that's right.
They're still in the works as far as I know because I haven't seen anything updated, but there's like supposedly a Tetris franchise coming out. Like makes zero sense to me. 0 cents. We'll do a little bit of casting news because that's fun stuff to talk about.
Tetris is an upcoming biographical film directed by John Boyd for Apple TV Plus.
It's okay. Going to Apple TV Plus, sure.
Starring Taron Egerton as the guy who I think created Tetris.
What? Oh my god! Wow. Okay. I love me some Taron Egerton, so I mean, I'll watch it. I don't know how or why, but yeah.
This is the thing that's happening.
That's sure. That's also a great John Schnepp quote. I like shapes. Yes. Okay. I remember when they talked about it. I think that sounds familiar. That's might be Mike. That's probably a great quote you just pulled. Tetris has to be better than Pop-Tart. I want to watch them in a double feature and see what happens. See who's better. I think. Ooh, great call. This was another one of my favorites. Brown sugar cinnamon Pop-Tart. That was another one of my favorites. No, so
just trying like the serious gritty Tetris movie. Like, my God. We need to move these shapes, but we need to get them in rows. Who's the man to do this, Jensen?
And Taron Egerton comes in as like he's going to be like the ostracized, like he was really good when he was younger about stacking things, and like he was a prodigy, and then he got kicked out because he had behavioral issues. And
Shane's going to play his unconvinced father. Son, you're never going to be able to put those
or his mentor,
roles.
Or his mentor. You'll never be able to have all the boxes set up.
Your ego's too big, chained in a box.
Oh my god! Now I want to see it. Taron Egerton and Ian McShane. I'm so in. I'm so in for this movie. God, have they announced it? Announced Ian McShane for Tetris. Can we will that into existence?
All right, Spirit Bomb energy time.
Yes. Let's do some casting. Then I have some fun stuff. Just to hop around like little itty bitty news things, and then we'll get into the 4th of July stuff. Yeah, there was that. I'm trying to organize things on my other monitor. So casting, I just thought this was a little bit of fun. Christoph Waltz and Willem Dafoe will star in a Walter Hill Western called Dead for a Dollar. Sounds like a very interesting Western. Walter Hill had a huge slew of directing movies in the 80s. He directed The Warriors. He also directed 48 Hours. He produced and wrote, I think, both Aliens and Alien 3. Story of Aliens by, screenplay Alien 3 by. So he has definitely been around the block. And then it's a pretty, I mean, I could literally, if I try to nutshell the plot, it sounds like pretty much every Western, but it's like you attach to those names, I'm already interested. Where you have Waltz coming back. He's playing a bounty hunter. He's trying to find a woman named Rachel Price, who's the wife of a politically progressive Nathan Price, and he's a successful Santa Fe businessman. This takes place in Arizona in like 1897. And the bounty hunter, is told she's been kidnapped by an African-American army deserter, played by Elijah Jones, or the name Elijah Jones, excuse me, and being held for ransom in Mexico. When math goes, he finds Defoe, and then they have to team up to help. And then they find out that Rachel was being abused by her husband, and she actually ran away with this person who's their lover. So it sounds like a nice, fully developed story. And it sounds like a lot of fun to watch. So I'm in.
Christoph Waltz is another bounty hunter in the Midwest. Yeah, I mean the Wild West. Why not?
I mean, yeah.
If the first time.
If it's not broke, don't fix it. So let's do it. And especially with Willem Dafoe, like those two are going to be a lot of fun to bounce off each other. More
be a fly in the room during that script reading.
Exactly. More quickie casting news. You sent this to me, and I'm really excited. Nick Offerman is going to join the A League of Their Own cast that's going straight to Amazon Prime, which it's actually a series, which is even more exciting. Because if you had to pick somebody who'd be like, who could be a coach of the Peaches now? Yeah, Nick Offerman.
Yeah, Nick Offerman.
Yes.
Yes, 1,000 times yes.
Yes, and it's being co-produced by Broad City alums Abby Jacobson and Will Graham, and then it's also starring Shantae Adams, Darcy Carden from The Good Place fame.
Just as long as it like fills that void in my heart that was broken by Netflix when they just straight up canceled Glow.
Yeah, I mean that was not a great call by Netflix.
Nope.
It's why don't I? Especially because like I think the creators of Glow were very clear that they were only wanted to do 4 seasons.
Yeah.
So like I don't know why you couldn't, especially because like that I don't want to say I know, but I feel like that was one of the most successful original series from Netflix. Like not everything is going to be Stranger Things, but I do know it was on that spectrum and
it was
towards the high end.
Yeah, it was just great. It was literally A League of Their Own, but set in the 80s, and instead of baseball, it's professional wrestling.
Yeah, and they had like done a really good job of crafting that story and doing something new and fresh and different every season. So, like, I was excited to see what their own TV station was going to look like, and now we won't get that, and that's upsetting.
No, I don't get my closure.
Damn it, Netflix. Yeah, I think they said that.
I need a table to flip.
I'm flipping my laptop, although that's a terrible idea.
I do not recommend that.
I don't recommend it either. I think I can't remember where I read this, but I think they said if you made it out of 1 or 2 seasons in Netflix, you were an outlier because almost every show gets canceled after 2 seasons at Netflix. So it's insane how I think we're about to do season 4 of Stranger Things. I think they're not going much further. I think they said they're only slated to do 5 or 6, which is probably fine because I think the kids will age out pretty quickly anyway.
Yeah.
And a lot of things got bumped due to pandemic cause and whatnot. More fun casting news, just because I also didn't know the co-stars when I get to it, but bigger names now being attached to Cocaine Bear, which is probably one of my favorite concepts for a film. But Kerry Russell and Ray Liotta will now join the already cast Alden Ehrenreich, O'Shea Jackson Jr., and Jesse Tyler Ferguson. And I'm a little more apprehensive because they changed it because it was supposed to be like a dark comedy, and now it says Universal Thriller. And I'm like, no. Like this movie should be ridiculous.
It could still be. It's just how they're phrasing it. Because again, you still have Elizabeth Banks behind it. So
Sure. It's and for those of you who haven't heard anything about this, I'll go over it again because it's just so much fun to say. The true story, as reported in 1985 by the New York Times, was that a 175-pound black bear consumed the contents of a duffel bag filled with more than 70 pounds of cocaine.
that's a lot of cocaine.
That was dropped from the airplane by a local drug smuggler, Andrew Thornton. The bear was later found dead from an apparent drug overdose. And now I just want to go watch the scene from.
What?
I want to go watch the scene from Role Models with with Jane Lynch, where she goes, "You know what I used to have for breakfast? Cocaine. You know what I used to have for lunch?
Are you going to say cocaine?
You know what I used to have for dinner? Was it cocaine?" And it's also but it's being produced by Lord and Miller. So I think that's one of the things that makes me happy. Also, that actually, I now put it together just in my brain as I'm going through the story. Being produced by Lord and Miller, starring Alden Ehrenreich. So clearly they had a good experience with him on Solo. And there's yeah, let's use him again. Let's put him in some stuff. So I'm happy about that. I'm happy he gets
another movie.
Like a Redux.
Yeah. And it just so happens to be a movie with a cocaine bear.
Mike, yes. Honestly, I want this. Mike says, what if this movie is all the genres? I want that. I'm
looking forward to the musical number.
The musical number, the really big dramatic scene that's interrupted by a cocaine bear.
With the singing voice by supplied by Neil Patrick Harris.
The documentary or the found footage aspect where it's or you get the rampage from the bear's point of view where it's on coke just running. Also, I went rereading
while he's holding one of those 80s cameras.
What genre is this? Yes. Although reading it, I hope they do change it because it's I feel like 170-pound black bear. Honestly, that's kind of small for a bear. I'm bigger than that bear. You're bigger than that bear. So that's interesting. That's an interesting wrinkle. So you imagine that's a young bear. So that's actually a little more. That is a different dynamic when you think about it. You know what I mean?
I think it's the black bear. I'm looking up facts about different bears here.
This is what we do on the show. Come for the movies. Stick around for facts about bears.
So it was most likely a female.
Sure.
Oh no, adult black male bears. Yeah, it's a female. So 175 pounds is a female. Because the male bears can get up to 660. So it's either a young adult. So it's either a female black bear or a college student black bear who found all that cocaine while on spring break from Bear University. He's like, yeah,
spring break,
cocaine.
Perfect. Just perfect. Let's stay a little lighthearted, and then I want to bounce around a tiny bit. Because I have that. Yeah, that goes into Independence Day stuff. I'm just going to exit out of this because I don't want to talk about it. And we already talked about it. Do we need to talk about box office stuff? I don't really think so.
Now, do you want to talk about Sexy Beasts on Netflix?
It took me a second to figure out what you were talking about. Have you watched any of it? I just heard about it.
I don't think it's out yet. I think they just only dropped the trailer for it.
So a dating show that basically is we're going to put people in full body makeup. And it's so you're just having a dating show with furries.
Right. What it boils down to. I was going to hop around. We'll do the super lighthearted one because this came out just 3 days ago. And I thought it was a lot of fun let me see if I can do this quickly. Yep. Where basically we're all talked about Loki. And then this photo came out where it was Sophie DiMartino basically came out and she said while she was filming Loki, she basically got cast right after she had a kid. So basically what the costume designer did was they made part of her costume have hidden zippers. So it was very easy for her to nurse on set or for her to milk if she needed to. And it was that's awesome. That's a great little bit of trivia. That's super cool for her and everybody else. Good on you.
Good on you. And
awesome job, costume designer.
Yeah. And so that's also inclusion. There's a pretty famous story about how Carrie Ann Moss sprained her ankle in the very, very, very beginning of the Matrix, but she didn't tell anybody because she didn't want to get recast. And I think that goes to show you in the last 20 years how far this industry has been coming. Yeah. So it's like, because I mean, late 90s, you're doing an extremely experimental movie. That's a very real possibility. And in that system that they would just replace you.
Well, especially first day of shoot, early days of shooting. Yeah. They could easily have just replaced her.
Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things. Like, so it's just great to hear that right now. And like, you hear all kinds of stuff about that. And it's good that they're just like standing up for these people, standing up with these people, and like just change, more inclusion. Like, that's such a simple thing that probably wouldn't have happened X number of years ago.
You want to do a little water cooler talk about Loki?
That's what I was going to say. We can do a little bit. I don't want to go too far just because I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. And yeah, Mike, that's a great point.
Yeah,
is like
the
wholesome Hollywood stories, because they stick out among the Tales of Nightmares productions, which I'm sure still happen, but I think the culture is slowly changing. Because I even know people personally who have had really rough stories about like just unsafe productions and like shit like that. So it's one of those things and that's on indies. So indies obviously has a different standard than like big budget Hollywood studios. And it's like you hear more and more stories about like people just doing good and like doing their best and like people being weeded out just because they're assholes and like nobody wants to work with them, it's one of those things where it's like, it seems, especially because this industry is so much in the public eye, it's good to focus on those positive stories. But yeah, Loki, we are 4 episodes in. Mm-hmm. We have 2 left. Let's go back to the beginning. What were your expectations for the show?
I literally had no expectations going into this one. I know I say this a lot, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know where they're going with this. And it just sounds so trippy and weird enough to keep my interest. That's what it was going into that first episode. Because I knew it was going to be I was hoping for a good mystery kind of thing, like not like a WandaVision where you could tell they're setting you up. It's like, this is not what you expect. Mystery box. This one is like, this is a flat out mystery that they're going to try to solve by the end of episode 6.
You are pretty much like living in the mystery box. Like that's kind of the vibe I got, where it was like you get a mystery, but you also get it like set more or less out of time, which is such a great little wrinkle. And like coming off of Endgame, and you think like, well, first in Infinity War, you think Loki's story's over. And then in Endgame, like you see how this timeline gets developed. Okay, this is why I said no spoilers, Reef. Like we're not spoiling anything. We're just going into pretty vague generalities. And you only have to wait 2 more weeks before everything is available. And I don't know. Mike says, I don't know where they're going with this. In context of Loki is the highest compliment I can give any of the MCU shows so far, which is it's kind of a great point, because in WandaVision, you more or less knew what was happening. And after the first few episodes, you could tell it was basically about Wanda and about her story with grief. Yep. Like, and how they told that using the medium of a sitcom was breathtaking, like so well done.
Going through this history of television in each episode, I love that. But that story is more or less you could see the ending clearly with that one, as opposed to where we are with Loki, because I still don't know how this thing's going to end.
That's pretty much where I was going to, and that's again no spoilers to Reef, but like that's kind of what I was thinking. Where it's like you have that with WandaVision, where everyone was pontificating. It's like, oh, who's this? Who's that? What does this mean?
Everything's Mephisto, right?
Everything's Mephisto. Everything meant something bigger. Are they going to? Is the engineer going to be introduced? Is that Reed Richards? Like red herrings all over the place. And it was like, I'm sure the people who were like creating the show, as they're watching the dialogue on social media, they're like, what the fuck are these people talking about? Like,
they're probably sitting back, cracking a beer, going, look at these guys.
Right. So, and then you get into Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is very meat and potatoes. Like,
it's probably been the most straightforward.
Yeah. Like you knew what was going to happen all the way through. And like going into Loki, I literally was like, it was one of those things, and Eric and I have had numerous conversations about this. I had no expectations, because it was like, I hadn't seen anything. I hadn't like watched anything. Like I had no idea where they were going to go with it as far as tone, style, anything. And to feel like this series it's something new and especially in Marvel, where it's like it feels like they took the vibe from Men in Black and just turned the sepia way up and turned the technology down like 4 or 5 notches, and then they mashed that together with a great mystery story and some Doctor Who. There's a lot of Doctor Who vibes.
This
and
feels like 1970s Doctor Who.
Yeah,
The Prisoner is another series that I can compare this to.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great. I'm trying to think if I've watched all of that or just like a few episodes. Like when, because that's such a unique that feel of that series is so specific. For those of you who don't know, the series was a show. I think it was a BBC show, wasn't it?
It was BBC. Yep.
It was produced in England, and you might know the star off the top of your head, and I don't, unfortunately. But it was basically about a guy who I don't know if he has amnesia, but he wakes up to find himself like in a very specific type of world. It's set in the 70s, but it's like not a utopia, but it's like something strange about this neighborhood he's in. And it's called The Prisoner because eventually he finds out that he's like stuck in this neighborhood and he can't leave. And it's a really well done series. This is like, I mean, you can see the influences in Loki, but it's obviously pretty different. So, Mike, I'm not clicking on that comment just because there could be possible spoilers. So, I don't think there is because you were making a few educated guesses. But like where we go from here in the last 2 episodes, it's anybody's guess. I won't even say how the last episode ended because it's kind of a spoiler. I will say episode 3, that whole episode. I don't know if we talked about this. I had huge Borderlands vibes. Like the whole landscape, like how everything looked, even with some of the ancillary characters that they were introducing. Like, I'm like, this feels like an episode of Borderlands because that's one of my favorite games.
No, like that 3rd episode totally feels like more of a modern sci-fi setting, sci-fi storytelling.
Definitely
like
a Doctor Who vibe.
Again, this is like Marvel's Doctor Who, and it's literally just going through all the different variations of the Doctor.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but so yeah, little mini Loki review. A lot of fun. We have another couple weeks coming up where knowing Marvel,
can't wait.
Knowing Marvel, they'll stick the landing, so we won't even worry about that. I want to directly address something I found. This was I'm going to start and I'll scroll up because he directly said this, and it's on Twitter, which is, obviously a good source for some things. But Batista responds to making a movie with The Rock and John Cena. He says, "Nah, I'm good." He literally retweets it with this. He said, "I figured a visual reference might help. I just prefer not to be lumped in. Nothing personal. #Dream Chaser." And this goes to a conversation we have off camera a lot. And I think a couple times we've had on camera where he is right now, as far as wrestlers turned actors, easily the most diverse. Yeah, the most diversified, arguably the best actor. We really haven't seen a lot of these other guys like stretch their legs as far as acting roles go. And so you do get some like here and here, you get some pretty typical heavy Batista ones, but then you get to the other ones where you go, Drax he's still a heavy, but like there's a huge, well-refined character there. And then you get to the, 2049 character he has, and that literally sets the tone for that entire movie. Like that movie doesn't go as well as it does without him and Gosling having that first 10 minutes together, in my opinion.
Like the role in Spectre, that is probably the most like plain menacing professional wrestler. This is why we hired you for this role for him. Also because he only has one line of dialogue also.
Yeah.
But everything else is just so different, or the characters are so interesting. Because when The Rock is on screen, he's The Rock.
Yeah. Mike says the difference between Batista and the other two is that he's an actor who was a wrestler, while The Rock and Cena who were wrestlers who became actors. That's a fair point to make. And I think Batista even said he's come out and like he was at first he was uncomfortable and he had to kind of grow into the character into the WWE where he he changed and as far as Batista goes, he doesn't get the career he has without James Gunn. Like that's 100% going into Guardians. Like he's been able to do everything else. And then when you get the ear of like a Denis Villeneuve, and now Batista's literally in Greece shooting knives at you. Like I get goosebumps thinking about how good Batista is in everything he does. Like if you need an example of him leading a film, I loved My Spy. Like My Spy is him.
I loved it.
He's so charming and he does such a good job. Like in Army of the Dead, like he's fun, but it's a pretty straightforward meat and potatoes action movie. Like I think we've also said, we might have said on stream before, like we think Batista will definitely be the first actor nominated for like at least a Globe, if not an Oscar. Because I would say look at the 2049, and we have yet to see how he's going to be in Dune, because that's another thing I'm really excited for. I think the other guys
Batista, he's going out of his way to work with these directors. That's the thing, because it's usually like Rock and John Cena. I don't think The Rock because Rock did his like dramatic, more serious roles early in his film career,
kind
like
of
in the middle. Like after the Tooth Fairy, he did the Gridiron Gang and the Drive, and
was
there's
it
one
Faster?
Faster, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
There was more serious to it, but now he's just like, look, I know who I am. I'm going to be the next president. I'm just going to make as much money as I can, and make sure everyone buys my tequila.
I think it's one of those things where it remains to be seen for some. I think The Rock is probably the biggest movie star out of all of them, the most recognizable. But I also think it goes down to career choice, where, like you said, Batista he's chasing these roles. I think it'll be interesting to see after we get The Suicide Squad, after that comes out, to see what Cena does, because I think Cena's the best comedian, honestly. I think he has the best timing.
He's already got the Peacemaker series on HBO after this.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, James Gunn's already said he's like the best improver I've ever seen. I was like, that's what he's been doing for 20 years. It's just a different format. Stop saying it's faked and it's not real entertainment.
No. So that's the thing, and I think it's kind of like not even a poorly kept secret, but like as far as what wrestlers have to do, I had a friend a mutual friend of ours actually, she booked a job to be in the WWE, not like in the WWE, but like
she had to play a character.
She had to play a character where she was like the barista who saw two of these wrestlers like having coffee or something, and apparently like they don't get lines until like 3 hours before they have to be on camera, and so like it's one of those things where it's like the machine is just too big to stop. So you have to be comfortable with your character, learning lines very end of the time. And like you have to be just pretty much ready to go. So it's almost like acting boot camp in a weird different way, because you hear actors will talk about wrestling, but then they'll also talk about like on the same, you could put it somewhere in like soap operas. Like soap opera actors have to put so much dialogue into their head, where a normal blockbuster production will shoot 1, maybe 2 pages per day. Soap operas, I think, will shoot anywhere from 15 to 20 pages per day. And then WWE, you're doing it live. So, I mean, fuck it, we'll do it live. And so they have to know all of it. So, and
they have to be ready in case something goes wrong, because, it does go wrong, because it is live.
It happens. Things go wrong. Sadly, you people have lost their lives in rings before, and then like I would say you cut the feed and you it's over. Like you drop the charade, and then it's like, go to commercial. Let's cancel this broadcast, and then it gets to be a really big bummer. But as far as the talent goes, you can't deny you have to have something special in order to hit all these things well. And if you want to know about that, watch Fighting with My Family.
Yep.
Because that's a really well done movie about all that. Again, starring The Rock. So a nice little segue. And Florence Pugh. So Sean says hi.
I'll be seeing Thursday in Black Widow.
What's up, Sean? And yes, happy birthday to Steve Rogers. I hope everyone loves him.
Leave a slice of apple pie out for him.
Apple pie and milk and cookies. No, Reef, I have not seen Chadwick Boseman auditioning for Drax, but it's good. It's one of those things where...
Guess what I just Googled, and guess what I'm going to be watching right after this.
Nice. We won't put that just because, we don't want to get dinged for anything. I think the last little bit that I wanted to talk about before we get into some July 4th stuff was just the headline says, Patty Jenkins thinks streaming's day and date strategy won't last. I found this super interesting, especially because, she was one of the first people to have that day and date, not like forced upon her, but like, so... I'm trying to think.
Well, I mean, she did get paid quite a bit of money to say it was a good thing when Warner Brothers decided they were doing that.
Mm-hmm. I do remember them talking about that. I think it was on the podcast Freddie Prinze did with like Harloff, where he said he worked at WWE and part of his job was holding promo classes for the talent. And I remember the story he talked about with The Miz, and he said The Miz was the best guy he'd ever seen on the mic. which I buy because he's also a very charismatic individual. And
Yes.
they were doing an improv game, and it was like he immediately came to play essentially. And so, but the thing that I found interesting in this article with Patty Jenkins, where literally I thought this was a very interesting question. The first thing the reporter says was, now that you have some distance from the release of Wonder Woman 1984, is there anything you would have done differently? And I read that as a very layered question, but the way Patty addresses it, it probably wasn't that much. And I'll read this because I want to hear Eric's point of view as well, and I have mine. But she says, I don't know what I would have done differently because I feel that at the end of the day, it was a compromised decision based on a series of compromised options. There wasn't a good option. Unlike a lot of the movies coming out now, we had been sitting on a finished movie for a while. From there, we watched as every movie was cascading back. What we were faced with was a pileup of releases, in parentheses. The theaters literally asked us to do it. They said, we're going to shut our doors if nobody comes in. So what are you going to do? I am filled with sadness that it didn't get a real theatrical run. I hope one day it does. It completely changes how people see it, but what are you going to do? It happened. So many people had terrible things happen during the pandemic, and we were one of those. Your thoughts?
I mean, would have been great to have seen that movie in the actual theater and to have, see it on the big screen. I get it, but I mean, at the same time, Warner Brothers came to her and was like, here's the idea we have. And they compensated her for her to go and say, this is a great idea. We are totally going to put this on HBO Max, and by golly, it's a wonderful idea.
It's also one of those things where you're being the flagship as far as a now defunct franchise. So Wonder Woman, I think, without question, the first Wonder Woman is the best movie the DCEU ever put out. It was an origin story that we did need, regardless of how people felt about the third act. It was still the most well-rounded film. And following it up with this, I don't know if there was a third announced, but as far as how the reviews were mixed about that, I think we even had mixed feelings about it. And it's one of those things where it's like, especially with like how the world was, it was, I think maybe outside of Mulan, this was the biggest thing to come out like to streaming. And it was like the first thing, like, cause it was only announced a few weeks before where it was like, oh yeah, all of 21, like Warner Brothers Day and Date, HBO Max. And I think they said like, she says theaters were going to be shutting down, but some of them opened, some of them showed this. So, and it didn't make a whole lot of money. It would have made like, and I think that's the difference between, and this remains to be seen in the next 2 weeks. So you got Fast 9 being the first blockbuster to really open. Cruella you could kind of call, but like it wasn't pushed as much as like say Black Widow, because that's the other thing I was going to mention. Because we were supposed to get both Wonder Woman 84 and Black Widow, mid 2020. So this goes to show you who maybe we can pontificate a little bit that like Warner Brothers was actually a little nervous. Like they actually had some money issues, and that they were like, we need to get this out there. We need to get in front of this. Whereas Disney's just sitting like, oh, we can wait as long as we want. Black Widow is going to make us $1 billion. Like we're fine.
Well, also it's because, at that time, Disney Plus was beating expectations for what they were planning in terms of subscribers and getting all that. HBO Max was lagging. So this was Warner Brothers' great idea of, hey, let's boost those numbers up. So we're going to do the day and day for our entire, 2021 slate. And they figured, okay, out of all these movies, what's going to be the one to get, butts in seats, more or less? What's going to get people paying? So go with the safe bet at that time, Wonder Woman 84, because it's a follow-up to a successful movie. It's right around Christmas time, so families are going to be together no matter how it was all done. And that's the perfect time to try to do something like this.
And it's interesting to see the strategy as well, because you have versus like we'll say the Mulan, if you talk about the streaming side of things, whereas literally Disney I think they said like pure profit was like easily $300 million because of how many people just straight up rented Mulan just to watch it once. Before it just became on streaming, versus I think there's a plus and a minus. Basically, do you take the payout in the beginning, like from Disney Plus, getting all the lump sum money, Or do you roll the dice with HBO Max saying you're going to pay for that $20 a month, but you're going to keep it for X number of months, hoping that everyone will see the new releases? Like, I would have loved to have seen Mortal Kombat on a big screen, but like when it came out, it was perfectly fine. It was another one of those, like, probably on the border for me personally. But you would think in the long run, Warner Brothers will make more money just through subscriptions, but that remains to be seen, like how those numbers show up. And that's another thing about like streaming. I don't know if it'll be interesting to see if like the government ever gets involved. Be like, streaming, you have to release your numbers, so like you can say no monopolies or whatnot.
Well, because the other thing you got to think about is before all this hit, before the pandemic hit, was the average American only went to the movies 4 times a year.
Yes.
So average ticket cost is like what, $10? So that's $40 going to the movies. If you get someone to get Disney Plus for a year, you get them to sign up successfully. That is going to be, sorry,
ding dong.
You know, you're going to get somebody. You get the Disney Plus for $10 for the whole year. You're getting someone to pay $120 versus the $40 for, you know, and do the same thing math for HBO Max. It's $15. You're getting them to pay. You're getting more money that way from the person, as opposed to you get the movie ticket where you're splitting with the theaters, you're splitting with the distribution. It's all about getting contact directly to us and for us to give them money directly, cutting out all the middlemen.
Which is interesting that like a company like Disney would keep pushing back a flagship, a tentpole movie like Black Widow, because they believe that's how much it'll like. There are other movies.
Part of the reason for Black Widow, I think they kept holding on to it, is because they know against the MCU how much money they can make off that, not only here but foreign too.
It'll be really curious to see how it performs versus something like Fast 9, and then not necessarily Space Jam, because that's the following week, which is also day and date, but Fast 9 being the one that got pushed as well. And then it'll be interesting to see how these perform versus ones that are going to be even later, versus like Top Gun 2 versus like No Time to Die, which got put all the way into later in the fall because the studios were like, no, we want as much as humanly possible, versus Black Widow, who's like, we waited long enough because it was pulled very last minute, like, you know, a week or two out. Mike says the third Wonder Woman was announced close to the release of 1984, but that happens a lot where the sequel to a kind of maligned movie is announced to incentivize people to see the current release. So we'll see if that actually holds up, especially with like the calls from, you know, Snyder stans wanting, you know, Snyder cut, blah, blah, blah. And especially with like, I think, I don't want to say that it'll depend on how the Suicide Squad does, because I think the Suicide Squad is going to crush, and I think that it has nothing to do with anything in the DCEU outside of Harley Quinn. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But it's very curious and very interesting to talk about that, as far as like how the second half, especially of 2021, will dictate a lot of things going forward.
Yeah, we shall see.
All right, I think we made it all the way around to some 4th of July stuff. The first thing that's just a little fun to share, because I've seen this pretty much everywhere, where it's happy anniversary of 100 years to this photo. The Overlook Hotel, July 4th ball, 1921. I mean, I will say Jack Nicholson has aged pretty well.
Yeah, for 100 years, yeah.
No, for 140 by this rate, because he's got to be 30 or 40 in that photo.
This is also true.
So that's just a fun little thing. And then Eric proposed an interesting idea, where we're going to have a tiny little draft. I don't know how this is going to go.
Because we were going to, like, we could just do the plan. Hey, let's just talk about this random Independence Day movie. You know, movies to watch during Independence Day drafts.
And movies to watch on July 4th. That's
right. That we're going to be doing right now. So Dan's going to flip a coin. I will call it in the air. And then if I'm right, I get the first pick. If I'm wrong, Dan gets the first pick.
Yep, pretty much how it goes. All right, here we go.
Do it. Heads.
It is tails. And you know what the first pick is going to be.
Oh, yeah.
You know, of course, the first pick, you can't have July 4th without watching Independence Day.
Absolutely. I hinted at it earlier during my intro.
Yeah. So, and then randomly while I was going through show notes, I found a huge article from the Hollywood Reporter where the quote is, "You can't actually blow up the White House. An oral history of Independence Day." I think I made myself out of focus doing that. There we go. Now I'm back. And there were a couple of things like going through this, like it is a quintessential now Independence Day movie for me. Let me see if I can find the quick things. You talk a little bit about Independence Day, and then I want to see if I can find the things that I found really interesting in this.
Well, Independence Day was probably like the perfect storm for that time because again, you still had like Will Smith with his trajectory becoming the major movie star, and you have the perfect casting with Jeff Goldblum in there. And it's just, I remember the marketing so hard for this. I had the action figures, which came with their own floppy disks.
I did too.
Yeah, where you had the different games in each one, which was.
Mhm.
I think I was 13 when that came out, which was just perfect enough for a young Eric right there. But it was the perfect summer blockbuster for the mid 90s. Great action, the comedy works. Randy Quaid, before he totally went off the deep end, with some great one-liners.
Comes up a little bit in this article. They said, and this is mostly the oral history is with Emmerich, the director, Devlin, the co-writer, because Emmerich also co-directed it. But they said, well, the studio did not want Will Smith because he was a sitcom TV star. And the studio said, no, we don't like Will Smith. He's unproven. He doesn't work in international markets, which he definitely misproved them on that.
Yep.
And then they had, the creative guys, they were like, no, we want Will Smith. They also tried to they said they wanted Ethan Hawke, but he was too young. This is one of the ones that I find this very interesting. And we're going to go into something that we don't normally touch on, but basically one of the co-writers said, I knew Kevin Spacey since high school. We had just seen The Usual Suspects in early cut. The original idea was to portray the president as a villain. And it was going to be a twist that he's heroic and gets in the plane at the end of the movie. That's why we were pushing for Kevin Spacey. At one point, we said we can get Kevin for $200,000 right now. A year from now, he's going to win an Oscar and cost $2 million. The studio executives said, Kevin Spacey will never win an Oscar in my lifetime.
Well, Kevin Spacey proved you wrong.
He proved him wrong, but it's also like that seems so much more ominous to me. You know what I mean? Like that exec was like, no, fuck that guy. So it's like, hey, studio exec, little preemptive golf clap here for you.
But then you get Bill Pullman giving the greatest speech, and then you also have the greatest extra in the history of extras.
Yeah. And they have they talked to a few people as well, where it was they talked to Bill Pullman, they talked to the daughter of Randy Quaid, where I like this little snippet where she says, I remember being in my dining room and auditioning for an alien movie and having my mom play a boy asking me if I wanted to die a virgin and thinking I had an incredibly strange job. Especially when you get your mom to help you self-tape that audition.
Wow.
They talk a lot about Vivica A. Fox getting cast. She apparently had 6 auditions to get cast.
Really?
Yeah, because she was a soap opera star at the time, and they didn't think that she could translate into film.
Well, once again, I think this movie again is just proving all these execs wrong.
You can. I'll put the link in the chat for anyone who wants to read it. It is a really interesting article to read through how all these people talked about it. There it is. It just got sent, and there's a lot more too where this goes to start the show of Will Smith as an international movie star, where it was. So the first thing they shoot is the ending scene, and they shot it in the Salt Flats in Utah. So it's 123-degree heat, and they have like a little. I'm paraphrasing part of this, and then I'll get back into the direct quote. They have a little tent, and it's really hot, but like all the actors are in the little tent. They have stand-ins, and then all of a sudden, Will Smith walks out and excuses the stand-in, and all the other actors saw him doing that, and one by one, they came out of the tent, and all of them were there in the burning heat. It was a silent statement about the way the project was going to go. Will started it. This wasn't going to be a show of egos. So that's a really big. For a star, like granted, he's on the come up. So there was a Will Smith joke he did behind the scenes. Jeff Goldblum having a hard time smoking cigars. There's improv too, where one of the co-writers, Devlin, said they would improv. Sometimes I would come in and suggest to throw a word in. He's like, we already had so many Easter eggs, so I just ran in and said, we'll probably cut it later, but you've got to give me the "must go faster" line from Jurassic Park. And Jeff Goldblum says, like, I loathe to appropriate from some other character, and I hope Mr. Spielberg wouldn't be unhappy that we'd used it. I think it all worked out.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing about them improving in the cockpit, like of the alien ship, where they change the directions and like all of these improvs, like there's so much more. The whole line about when Will Smith comes out and like he's doing the stuff with the alien. The only line that was actually scripted with Will Smith and the alien by themselves was, "That's what I call a close encounter." Everything else was improv, and they cut it all together. So like I could have been in a barbecue was improv, and like the writer. This is what I like so much about stuff like this is like the writer said, he said to Will, "Don't even look at the text. Let's just do a bunch of takes, and whatever comes to your mind, just do it." Like I love hearing stuff like that. It's so much fun to like execute and then see how it turns out. Nice. And that's just in the middle. Like that's a third of the way through this article. So read the whole article, because I could go into pretty much all of this stuff because it's so fascinating to like read through all of it, because they literally go from post to shooting to post-production or pre-production. So they go pre-shooting, post, and they go through pretty much everything, the oral history of it. So I'd highly recommend that because it's a lot of fun to read. And basically Independence Day is I feel like it's one of the few films that's come out in the last like 30, 40 years where you're like, yeah, okay, this is what we would do as a country if we got invaded by aliens. Like we'd get our shit kicked in, we'd try to nuke them, it wouldn't work, and then we would have to like rally together with some unity with the speech. Let me see if so basically the speech was the co-writer, he wrote the president's speech, and the director was like, just write something for now, it'll be a temp and we'll work it out later. And they shot it really late at night, and like apparently the said co-writer's name was Dean Devlin. He wrote it and he panicked. He goes, "Oh my God, I never rewrote the speech." And like, apparently it was just good as is. And I guess they said they only tweaked one line of it. So, yep.
Nice.
Oh, they changed the last line, and that's where they pretty much hammered home the title of the movie was the Independence Day part, because the studio wanted to call the movie Doomsday.
Oh yeah, no, bad name.
So then what would you pick for your first film?
So my number one overall pick is actually something you could celebrate yesterday on July 3rd, because that's just when it was released to Disney Plus. Hamilton. You gotta get something for the founding of America. I could have gone with 1776, but Hamilton is more current. It is better, and who just doesn't love Lin-Manuel Miranda?
That was on my board as well, easily. Like I'm sure you knew it because you knew how much I love this movie and how much I love.
Everyone loved this movie. Like I still think Disney could release it in theaters and still make a buttload of money. Like imagine watching that in a Dolby theater.
I mean, yeah. Oh, sorry. I wasn't, and then you said it, and then it took a second, and then I imagined it, and I'm like, oh, all the goosebumps, just all of the goosebumps for how good it would be.
But again, just for looking around, just to be like one day reading an autobiography of Alexander Hamilton, goes, you know, I'm going to turn this into a hip hop Broadway musical. Yeah, and like people are laughing at him about it. And again, another great thing about America, we prove people wrong.
Exactly, and now he has 2 great films under his belt, and he's doing pretty much all the music for every Disney thing ever that has lyrics. Like Moana's amazing. Yep. So good for him. And have you
ever had a chance to watch In the Heights?
Yeah, I saw In the Heights a couple days after it was released. So good. Nice. So well done.
Well done. All right, so what are you picking next?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because I have a few things and like some that don't directly deal with the 4th of July, just vibe. You know what? I want to stick with a theme, and I'm just going to go, because this movie was released over the 4th of July weekend, I'm going to say Men in Black.
All right.
Because it's one of those things where I went for more of a vibe as opposed to, and this might change with the third movie, because I have a couple of other things I'm kicking around that just like, you know, America and what it means to you. But Men in Black was the thing that Will Smith was trying to execute, and he was trying to say that he owned that weekend. And for those 2 years in a row, even three, because Wild Wild West did open very well. It did not have the legs, the other two did, but it was for 3 years in a row. He definitely opened a large budget movie over 4th of July weekend. And Men in Black was the second.
And that was one of those, and he didn't want to do Men in Black. Spielberg actually had to fly him out to interview him, like have a one-on-one chat with him to say, this is why you are perfect for this film.
I'm happy he did, because Men in Black is one of those things. Both of these movies, both Independence Day and Men in Black, age really well. They hold up. The stories are great. They're a lot of fun.
And the less we talk about the sequels, the better.
I was going to say, that's where I was going to go with it, where I was like, sequels? Okay, maybe. And I am sad. I will say the only thing about that to nowadays, I'm really unhappy we didn't get the 21 Jump Street Men in Black crossover that was rumored for a long time, because that would have been so great. Like those two guys joining Men in Black as those characters would have been great. And then did you see International? Because I did not.
I did not.
I heard such awful things. I didn't want to watch it.
I read the Wikipedia on it. I was like, this sounds just unnecessary.
Not so much as it sounded unnecessary, but it's like when you have, especially two people of that magnitude coming off of Thor Ragnarok, like,
right.
Or like, how do you screw that up?
Exactly. Like, and they did, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Because we're going to get Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah, we are. So what's your second pick?
All right. My second pick, I'm going with a movie that probably has the best 4th of July scene in a movie that I've ever seen. And that's The Sandlot. Because again, also we're dealing with baseball, which is another American proud product, and again, just that whole scene with the kids playing. The only time they can play nighttime baseball is on the 4th of July, and it's them playing. And you have Ray Charles singing, "America the Beautiful." Still, even as a kid to now, I love that scene. And again, this movie is also just a quintessential American story. So, The Sandlot.
Oh, it's so great! So it's fantastic voiceover. All those kids just playing amazing roles. That was another thing. Like I debated. I didn't want to pick this one, but I debated because I hadn't seen this movie in so long. But I thought about putting like Miracle on, just for that. Like it's an American story. Like it's about the Olympics, so like those kind of vibes.
And it's always the underdog, always coming up.
Exactly. Well, and that's just. With all that being said, and I love The Sandlot because it was very much coming of age movie, I want us to keep for my last pick, I want us to very much keep an idea of how we really are as a country. So my last one is Team America World Police. Because that satire can't be overstated. The fact that we very much feel like the police of the world, I think is always extremely relevant. I think it's a brilliantly done movie. You've never seen puppets do all the shit that happens in that movie. And it's one of those things where it's like, especially with, because we don't delve too much into politics on this view, but if anyone follows us, they know how we feel. And I feel like that's a really good, that movie came out, I think 2004. I have it up over here. 2004. Yeah. And it's still like that movie could come out anytime in the last 30 years and still be extremely topical and relevant. So I think I honestly would love to see the writers of South Park just like maybe write a slew of movies and give them to other people to go produce, because that would wind up with some really entertaining commentary. And Team America, I think, is one of those ones that holds up and it's a lot of fun. And I think we as Americans, we take ourselves extremely seriously. And I think this is a good movie to remind us not to do that.
Mm-hmm. So for my last pick, I'm actually going to disappoint Mike in the comments here. I'm not going to pick what he mentioned.
I thought, because that's why I didn't click on it, because I didn't know if anyone of us was going to pick Jaws.
I'm actually going to pick America, that we love to think of ourselves as the hero who's always rocketing in there, saving the day, punching a Nazi in the face. And I'm going with the Rocketeer.
Yeah, I knew it. I knew as soon as you said punching Nazis in the face, it was going to be
punching Nazis in the face. You have that beautiful score, the whole thing. And again, it gives me the premise of the idea of a possibility of a movie of mafia versus Nazis. You tease that at the end, but also it's another pulp action movie, which we as Americans we put out for the world to see. And it's just, again, it's a great movie. Everyone should go see it.
I will say,
And also that shot of him like silhouetting with the American flag behind him.
Rocketeer's a good one. We could throw out some honorable mentions because you said Rocketeer, the first Avenger would be a really good one as well because directed by the same guy, by Joe Johnston.
Yep, Joe
really
Johnston.
Well done movie.
I guess we should mention Jaws.
We should mention the reason Jaws I saw older when I was older. And yes, Mike, I'm glad you listened to PJ for your growing affection for that film because that film is amazing. I watched it a bunch as a kid. I need to go back and watch it because it's been years. But what I was going to say about Jaws is like the 4th of July Jaws evolves into a story about those three guys where the 4th of July is kind of the backdrop for it. And it like sets a lot of the things in motion. And it as we've talked about before, like it's also a good representation of a mayor, of someone in political power, not knowing when they should really being like, oh, by the way, like, oh, money's the
beaches are safe. It's safe to go out and swim.
That's like, I feel weren't there a bunch of memes coming out around COVID where it was like just exactly
that
like
guy?
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like another movie that's very topical, but you have to read a little bit more into it than Team America because Team America like beats you over the head with this idea. So yeah,
that was fun.
What other? Another honorable mentions. I feel like around this time I would always wind up watching Indiana Jones, either Raiders or Last Crusade, because it just feels very like swashbuckling, but without pirates always. So I thought about putting pirates or picking those because it has that kind of vibe as well. I like adventure movies around this time of year, which also typically go hand in hand for blockbusters. That would be a great call, Reef. I think a lot of people would love a Rocketeer TV series.
There's technically one for Disney Junior.
Ooh, speaking of, hold on, let me pull up. I want to do one more story because I saw this and I didn't add it to notes. And right now I'm kicking myself because there is new life in something that we both would love to see. And I just have to put in 2 names and then I should be able to. What? Autofill for fucking Google. You're adding weird right now. Okay, here it is.
Go home, you're drunk, Google.
Go home, you're drunk. So basically, this has been an on again, off again project for a few times. I think on was it Amazon Prime? I wanted to see if they could. It was supposed to be on Amazon, and then so basically, new life was breathed into it when Simon Pegg jumped on as a producer to the Galaxy Quest TV series.
Oh yes.
And so I guess their series got canceled after 1 season. Now I need to go watch it. Truth Seekers for Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. But I was looking for directly like what they were saying. It says Simon Pegg is planning because I know he had another an interview with the Times. Pritchard. Succession. Okay. Pegg is working on bringing the film to the small screen with the thick of it and Succession writer Georgia Pritchard. So that's actually the first new news we've had in a while, which is amazing because it's one of those things Galaxy Quest should have been. It should have all the accolades. It should have all the sequels. It should have a series already. So yeah, I forgot about that. I'm glad I mentioned it because so excited. Oh, and there we go. In the comments, Eric has now put our Independence Day movie draft. It was a lot of fun.
It was.
I got a plane outside my house. It's really, really loud.
That plane loves America.
And Mike, you are exactly right. Simon Pegg crossing over to Galaxy Quest after Star Trek just feels right. And a Jack Reacher TV series on Amazon Prime. So that's exciting too.
Much like Jack Reacher, I never go back.
Although, if that goes to Amazon Prime, coming from a strictly consumer point of view, from someone who we're clearly involved in movie and film talking headspace, so I know there's a difference, but that's going to be hard for them to market when they already have a Jack Ryan series. So
it's all part of a shared Tom Clancy universe.
Without remorse. Yeah, you throw in Michael B. Jordan in there too.
Yep.
They're going to have a film go to the big screen. I think we just saved Hollywood, as we've been known to do.
Just doing our job as Americans.
We give all this away for free, and then we don't keep any of these great ideas for ourselves. Shit.
Dang it.
Oh, classic us. But yeah, I feel rambled.
I'm feeling this is good ramble.
It'll be called Reacher. So that's what you're saying. It's called Reacher, and then it sounds a lot like Preacher. So there's so many, like, I understand like why executives like push for things, because sometimes it's really easy to confuse stuff. And this is nothing against you, Reef. Like, I'm happy you brought it up, but it's like, it seems a little problematic in titling alone. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, I know like the character, I know it's done really well. I know Tom Cruise had fun and did all that kind of stuff too. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see what comes of it. But yeah, anything else to add for our July 4th stream as we wrap things up here?
Nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Trevor's announcement. Don't be that dick who's setting off fireworks at midnight.
Oh yeah, don't do that.
Don't be that dick.
If you're in California, pretty much anywhere, if you're honestly, I would be extremely hesitant to set off fireworks anywhere. Like California, you could start fires. It's dry and hot everywhere. Like, just go watch professionals do it. Like, don't be safe. That's what we need to just, preach, ironically. Just be safe.
Also be nice. Think about your, neighbors and friends who could have PTSD, or, your friends or neighbors with dogs.
Pets who could have PTSD, sure. Yeah, all of the above. So just be safe. Don't make stupid decisions. Like, we'd rather you on this planet than do anything like that could hurt you or hurt others. So all about spreading that positivity.
We are pro you being here.
Yes, we're pro everyone being here. So do that. Like, even though Pride Month's over, we're still proud of all of you. We're still happy for all of you. All of the above. So let's celebrate that too. So across the internet from me, that way, is Clever Eric Muller.
And across the internet from me, that way. And from day and die.
As always, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share. We're going to be doing a whole bunch of new stuff on the channel, so look out for that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
The Dunkin' updates.
Yes. And we'll see what happens. And as always, ramble on.
Anchors away.